problem says let f of x equal x squared plus 3x and g of x equal 4x minus 2. Part A says find f of g of x. So for part A, this is f of g of x. That means that I take f and then evaluate that at g of x. Well, the problem tells you that g of x is 4x minus 2. So I'm going to replace the g of x by 4x minus 2. So I'm looking for f of 4x minus 2. This means that I need to plug in my 4x minus 2 into my function. And so I look at my f of x. F of x equals x squared plus 3x. Now, it's important to understand that that means that f of my input is the input squared plus 3 times the input. So here my x is my input. That's my input, that's my input. And in the case that we're working with here, the 4x minus 2 is the input. So when you look at the f of x, everywhere you see the x, you stick in a 4x minus 2. So I'm going to get 4x minus 2 in parentheses squared plus 3 times parentheses 4x minus 2. That's what I get when I take my f of x, and everywhere I see an x, I replace it by 4x minus 2. So now I have to simplify this, so 4x minus 2 in parentheses squared. That gives me 16x squared, and then you have minus 4x times 2 times 2. That's going to be minus 16x, and then plus 4, and then I distribute the 3, so I get 12x minus 6. Now I can combine like terms, so I have this negative 16x, the 12x, those combine, so I get 16x squared minus 4x, and then I have a 4 minus 6, so that gives me negative 2. So f of g of x is 16x squared minus 4x minus 2. Okay, now we have to do part B. Well, part B is pretty much the same idea as part A. It's just that you do g of f of x instead. So for part B, g of f of x is g of f of x, and f of x is x squared plus 3x. So I'm looking for g of x squared plus 3x. And then I do the same thing. I look at my g of x. Everywhere I see an x, so in this 4x minus 2, that x I replace by x squared plus 3x, because that's what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to evaluate my function when my input is x squared plus 3x. So I'm going to get 4 times x squared plus 3x, and then minus 2. And that's going to give me, when I distribute, 4x squared plus 12x minus 2. Okay. So now we do part C and part D. Well, in part C, it says f of g of 0. Well, in part A, we found f of g of x. So we know what f of g does to any input x. So for part C, we just plug in x equals 0 into our f of g function, which we found in A. So for part C, f of g of 0 is, well, we take the 16, oops, wasn't supposed to happen. We take this 16x squared minus 4x minus 2 and then plug in 0. So that gives you 16 times 0 squared minus 4 times 0 minus 2. And that gives negative 2. So f of g of 0 is negative 2. And then similarly for part D, g of f of 0, we plug in 0 into the function 4x squared plus 12x minus 2. So we get 4 times 0 squared plus 12 times 0 minus 2, which turns out to be negative 2. So in this case, f of g of 0 is the same as g of f of 0, but in general, they're not true. It's just in this particular example, they turn out to be true.